Tune in now, or you'll have to wait for 2 days. Oh no. What picture should I put up for our friendly friends? Probably the episode that we're actually going to do. Alright, I got that. Investing principles. And I put it in green, because that's what we're in. Wow, we're in the green.
In the green.
I had a chat with Justin on Monday as well. It was fun. Justin's cool. I could talk with that guy forever.
Nice. You're based in Sydney, right?
Classic. Yeah. I really want to catch up with him in person someday. Him and Pete.
Have you planned any interstate travel yet?
Nah. But I did mention I'll be down in August in Melbourne, and he was like, "Oh, I could maybe be in August in Melbourne in August. In August in Melbourne, could maybe do that." So yeah.
I was like, "Oh, why are you doing that?" Oh yeah. Wedding.
Yeah, screw Joey.
I need a.
That should be the question for today. Screw Joey? Question mark.
What do you call it? Book those tickets and.
What's that?
Need to book those tickets and.
Yeah, let's do it when he's up here. And get some actual dates and whatnot. I would be like, Joey, when's your wedding?
This year, next year.
Cool. Alright, so that stuff is good. I even have some time to double check over here. Your mic is on, yep. Have you heard of this guy? Olema Omega?
Yes, yes, I have. Yes, I've seen some of the videos.
Yeah. Probably because I've been watching them and they've been appearing up. Yeah, I've been enjoying his things.
Yeah.
They're pretty funny.
He's good quality material as well. Like good quality videos.
Yeah. Although I will say you don't need to watch too much of him. I think I watched 8 videos and then I was going, okay, yeah, this is enough. I don't need much more than this. All right, how are we sounding? On here? Sounding pretty good. Yeah. All right. You sounded all right. Oh man, and the thing with Justin. I think it was his end. I'm pretty sure it was his end because I haven't had this happen before on Zencastr. But every 10 minutes on the dot, he would get kicked, and then he would have to. It would kick him, reappear for me, so I could see and hear him, but he couldn't hear and see me.
Oh.
So he would have to rejoin the session, and every time he rejoined the session, that now started a new audio file and a new video file. So I've got. I think there's about 13 video files that I all need to compilate, and I'm going to have to, every time we stopped, it takes 5-10 seconds to get back into the flow. Yeah. So I'm going to have all of these little mini cuts to do. It's going to be horrendous.
Oh, man.
Not looking forward to that one.
That's painful.
Yeah.
What were you guys using to not use that ever again?
Well, that was Zencastr, but I think it was his place. Because he just moved into a new place.
Oh, okay. So maybe it was internet or something.
Yeah, I don't think it was Zencastr. I think it was his internet.
What are you using nowadays for the videoing?
Zencastr.
Okay.
Yeah. Just hook this up. Same setup as this, except there's software on there.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm going to set it up at home with the GoPro at first.
Oh man, just use this camera and get a HDMI. We'll just get another one of these things, and then. Just can use a HDMI cord from the camera.
True. Good point.
Because you're going to be needing to keep a camera at yours anyway.
Well, I wanted to use a GoPro one to begin with. Well, just to play around with it because it'll shoot the.
Oh yeah, that's your new GoPro, right?
Yeah, not the hour. Yeah. not OG GoPro. This is the GoPro 9, I think, which shoots not curved, normal square at 1440. So I was like, well, I want to play with that at least for just a small trial. Yep. Then when I get it, I'll be cool. So I'll probably end up taking most of our traveling kit basically with me.
Yeah, correct.
The mics and shit.
Yep, sounds good. All right, man. Ready to do this?
All right. You ready to run it?
Reminder for us to stop saying like. We were saying it quite a bit recently.
Like.
Get it out of the system. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Immortal Lights at home. Enjoy.
Money. Welcome back. Mere Mortal Lights. It's Musings. It's the time of the night or the day, whatever you're listening to in this fine world. You've got the Mere Mortals here. You got Juan on this side.
Kyrin here.
And we've got money. We're going to be talking about money. More specifically, investing. Investing your money. So
investing principles.
I put through the thought to Kyrin a couple of days ago of, hey, let's have a chatter about investing. Now, you did want to dial it down, not about investing in relationships. You can get into like some variations of the word investing.
I think that'd be too
conglomerate it. So I'm not going to conglomerate it. We're only talking about money, investing when it comes to money and finances. If you want to stretch it out that far, have you got a little definition there?
Investment is the dedication of money to purchase an asset to attain an increase in value over a period of time. The investment requires a sacrifice of some present asset, such as time, money, or effort. In this case, just money is what we're talking about. Investopedia. There's Merriam-Webster. I'm not going to even bother looking at them. Investing broadly is putting money to work for a period of time in some sort of project or undertaking in order to generate positive returns. Yes.
Awesome, very good. I don't think you put that up on the screen either, so the folks at home are cool. Okay, I was reading it out of the notes there. But probably the broader one as to why this came to mind was last week at work. We were having lunch with a couple of the work colleagues. Okay. And undoubtedly, for whatever reason, we got into this particular pattern of conversing on money and investments and investment principles and all these majority of things.
Yep.
And weirdly enough, I was one of the older gentlemen in this group. I'm the old gentleman now, folks.
Old man Juan.
The wise mere mortal. And the wise mere mortal and another even wiser mere mortal was there as well. We were having a conversation with two young pups, the young mere mortalites out there. They would have been 21 and 22.
Okay.
Like
pretty young.
That's right. Maybe a little bit older. Maybe 24 to 20. There was definitely one who was 21, 20s. But 24. Born in the 2000s.
Ugh.
2000 scum. And scum. Now, in this sort of conversation, you could see that getting into topics which I would have probably said are really the basic levels or basic ideas or principles seem to land as items of wisdom that they hadn't heard before, they hadn't considered before. Now, I'm not saying that this is the average individual. Maybe you're listening to this and you go, no, I'm much more clued in about investing in money. Perhaps these guys weren't as clued in. Maybe it's the average. I don't even know. I haven't talked to enough 20-year-olds to see whether it's the average. And really, for me, I went, there was a lot of stuff that they were basically asking, hey, tell us more about investing and money. In particular, we're talking about superannuation.
Tell me about that $8,000 you lost.
Tell me about that money. And we were sharing these things. Me and a mate of mine, of what are the wins, what were the losses, why were they the losses, risk. And we'll get into a few of these topics in today's podcast. And primarily, we're talking about superannuation and whether they should be putting more money into superannuation, less money, where should they putting the money? There's different things between why the investing principles. So in all of that conversation, I found myself speaking of some of my tips and tricks and ideas and thoughts and generalities, and so did this other dude. So I was like, this could make for a good conversation. So here we are, talking about investing and money.
I want to say, how most people say, by the way, not financial advice. I'm going to say this is financial advice for me because what you'll notice is I'm not going to recommend a single thing.
We're not. We're not going to tell you to do anything apart from buy Bitcoin and send it to us. That's the only thing we're going to say. But beyond that, we're not going to tell you to buy any shares.
The worst financial advice.
Look, we're not going to be doing any sort of investment pitch to you right now in this podcast. Apart from, we're going to be talking about. We'll specifically call out when we go into the Boostagram, and you'll see for those who are listening.
That's not investing. That's a completely different thing.
Well, exactly. Well, we'll call it out. You'll see what the difference is between us calling for value as opposed to investing talks. But if in some way, shape, or form this podcast all of a sudden gets 1 million views and ASIC comes and gets us something, this is not financial advice, folks. This is not, but it is financial wisdom. It's financial wisdom. So that's the difference. Now, my very first question that I actually had for you, because this is what really spurred it on. It was, what's the primary questions you ask yourself, Kyrin, when it comes to money and investing? What are your guideposts? If you have a question or a key couple of questions about what makes you invest X money to something, what's the things that run to your mind that go, yeah, these are the reasons why I'm going to do so.
Okay. So that's like a real broad one to start off with. I want to answer that by just listing the top points that I have, but I'm not sure that's exactly what you're looking for. Give me I'll give you the example.
I'll give you what I sort of nailed down as a broad post, and then we can start dialing into specifics. I went, again, going to the example at hand, there was a conversation of, and this wasn't even me that was bringing it up. This was very helpfully the other guy who was actually bringing this up, and it made me realize that I was getting too in the detail when realistically you have to kind of begin a little bit higher, which was why.
Yep.
Why? Why do you want to invest the money? And one of those particular guys, I'm not going to mention any names, but I will go into some details. He was saying, hey, I want to provide for my kids in 10 years' time to allow them to go to private school. Okay, so that's one reason. Another reason is he's going to get married and he wants to buy a house. Okay, cool. There's another reason. And so his conversation and where he was starting to align, he was just going more into the detail is, hey, should I put this extra amount of money into my super? Yes or no? Should I be doing that?
Yeah.
And in this conversation that we were having, what we were getting to was, hey, yes, you can do that. Like there is a choice and a risk and a return, and you can get into all that detail. But at the end, if the reason that you're investing your money is for 10 years down the track or 2 years down the track, which is the goal for kids or the goal for house, the super path might not be where you want to invest money, right? That's not super helpful for you. So
unless another COVID comes along, you can draw that extra out that you've kind of saved, because there's a short-term there's a long-term incentive to save, right? Because you can, if it's a voluntary payment, you can it's like non-tax deductible.
There's long-term and there's short-term benefits that you can talk about.
Yeah.
In the end, though, I think what the other guy was saying and kind of amalgamated in my mind was, hey, actually, that's a really good point as to why is it that I choose, or how do I choose to invest money in particular, whatever that may be, is time. In terms of what's the time length, what's the boundaries that you're looking to play in. And it is okay to answer that you have multiple different time lengths that you want to be talking about, that you want to be describing, or that you want to have ultimate outcomes for. It is important in whatever investing thought you might have, I believe, in money aspect, that you have almost what is if there is one, an exit strategy. Is it infinite? Is it beyond your death? Is it pre your death? Is it pre-kids? Is it pre-house? Is it 6 months, 2 months, 1 month? And then that captured with the second layer of risk tolerance then allows you to formulate a key on, okay, what's the investment protocol? What's the investment asset that I feel comfortable to go and play around with? Because without those two core ones kind of answered, which is one, why and what's the time length? It's even less important about why, the why of kids' house. It's more like, okay, of that why, goal. What's the length? What's the goal length? How much
do you need? And
what's the length of time for it? And then what's the risk tolerance that you will take on against the value that you may possibly return? So I kind of went, okay, that's kind of where I would base myself. Of the questions that I would ask. Maybe I don't ask myself them directly every day. But if I have to really think about it, realistically, even if I look at my own personal investments, I can see where I've got some time domains on a lot of them and reasons behind the time domains, and then the risk variances between them as well.
For sure. Okay. That gets into a couple of points that I definitely want to bring up as well. The easiest way for me to answer this is to actually show you something and show the people at home something. So I've got this checklist, which I call the year-end and quarterly checklist. And it's got my 8 goals here established out. And then also it's a kind of reminder thing as well. Have you done these things? What's a good thing to check in every 3 months? So this is pretty much exactly what you're asking. So I can just read this off. My financial goal is long-term, established adequate resources to provide for myself and loved ones with additional funds set aside for emergencies. Pretty standard there. So in particular, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions here to ask myself. Was the last time you looked at your finances as a whole more than 6 months ago? Will you be in short-term trouble if unemployed or lose more than 40% of your net worth? Are you diversified? What are your income streams? Can you be more generous? When was the last time you helped another? What is your relationship to money? Are you showing signs of materialism? Have you thought about the future and what type of position you need to be in? So a lot of it, I guess, is related to the why section. And then there's a couple of things here that indicate a couple of the other principles that I'm going to talk about, which are related to, diversifying, knowing yourself, where do you need to be, what are you thinking of, long-term versus short-term, stuff like that.
Okay. So, yeah. I guess that helps guide at a broad, swathe, maybe the ways that we would see it. So there's a lot of questions there that you're looking at in a quarterly, yearly basis to kind of remind yourself. I would say it's as simple as...
So I don't think of this... The reason I struggled is because I can't think of this on a short-term thing, on a daily thing, That's definitely not one. I'll bring it up. It's one of my topics, I think.
Okay.
Where did I put this one under? Because it wasn't a whole thing itself. I think it was, here we go. Know thyself.
Know thyself.
Is what I labeled this. So I think the strategy is kind of dependent on your values. So I think that was pretty much what you're saying. The why, which is getting into what do you actually need? And probably a lot of people don't think about the why. It's just... me want Lambo, me want a house. There's a difference between a small apartment, a house, a large mansion, and a shack out in the forest. Yeah. And the amount of money required for all of those is different, and how you present that money as well. Some of them you might need a job and income. Some of them you might be able to just pay right off. So I was definitely going, let's just use an example of me, for example. I have no kids. I don't have a job, but I do have like a relatively good base level of wealth. And I also have opportunities to rapidly get an income if I need to. Just like profession wise, I kind of, there's always been opportunities, much like you were saying, pre us starting, you're still getting civil engineering job offers. Yeah, I still get mining engineering ones. So what does that equal for me? I like high liquidity with a kind of emphasis now on something that's riskier and can grow, because I have opportunities in the future. If I fuck up, all right, I'll just go back to that with, an income that relates to the tax bracket that I am in, which is the very lowest. And so I can kind of get up to this 18K threshold without having to pay any tax. And so that financially wise makes sense for me. So I do want some dividends coming in and, potentially some capital gains. Maybe one day I'll see them again. What also does this then allow me to do? Well, I can think long term. If I was 66, like my dad is, he's not thinking long term. And if he is thinking long term, it's maybe long term for like, how could I maybe ensure that my shithead son doesn't, waste anything that I give to him, and that this can go on to perhaps future grandchildren that my shithead son has also not produced,
not provided yet.
Man, shitting on myself here. And so in that case, I don't have the desire to do anything short term, which for me is kind of like a couple of years or less. I don't want to be playing the crypto game of, this one's going to spike soon, I'm going to research into this one, or the stock game of that, or anything where I have to look at it more than briefly, like I said in my thing, for maybe once every 6 months for maybe 15 minutes to an hour, something like that. And so I think that kind of know thyself will answer a lot of those questions of, where should I invest? How should I invest? What amount of research should I put in, and things like that. Do
you think that yours and your mentality would shift more clearly once every quarter, once every 3 months when you like kind of review those questions?
Nah, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, okay.
The last time I saw probably a big shift was, maybe compared to 5 years ago. And even then, I thought about, should I lock up this ETH for staking rewards? And it kind of went against my liquidity thesis, which I prefer having. And so I didn't do it. So yeah, it hasn't really changed much.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I mean, I'm very much on the fence of, talking about knowing ourselves. I can see from the way you described, I can go, it will change for you, undoubtedly. So, people hearing that, it's like, oh, is that forever? No, it isn't. It isn't forever. It's knowing thyself for the time and place for it. When you are going to plan to have kids, hey, it'll shift because all of a sudden you've got a particular time span that brings shorter, and you go, okay, well, if I have to buy a house with this many rooms and this many bathrooms, and I've got to buy this and I've got to buy that. In. Yeah, cool. Okay, I need to do something about that and make sure that I'm comfortable enough that I can live not just on the scraping my ass type of deal. So
eating bread and tuna and mashing them into a thing for your lunch.
Yeah, that's all they eat. So that's all they'll eat. I'll still eat steak.
Okay, you'll still be eating good.
But so again, in a similar example, knowing that self for me, I go, yes, I would prefer to be. Predominantly, I've enjoyed being more liquid than illiquid. To be honest, I've only had a few assets that are really illiquid per se. For the majority, I don't like holding, bonds or something else where it's just like you're putting it in for a while. I've never enjoyed that. And so, one, liquidity for me plays a big role. Two, there's almost a variety. I almost know myself that I don't really play in the medium term space. It's sort of like short term space.
Ultra short or ultra
well, not even ultra short, not anymore. An example, I've talked about it in the podcast before, but if you haven't heard that, I did try out my hand on day trading. And look, some aspects of it worked well, some aspects of it did not. And I knew in myself, and this comes to more of the risk tolerance, my risk tolerance and almost cortisol levels and stress levels of putting a very short time frame bet where you just want it to go to the upside or going your way is just super stressful. Even if you win that particular bet, it's too stressful. I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I don't have particular time in my day to have to be that stressed out. I feel for people who work in financial industries or in the stock market in the day to day, dude, that would just be so stressful. Unbelievable.
They choose it. They don't have
They choose it. That's true. But so for me, it's like kind of shortish term. I'm talking like 1 to 3 years is sort of the one aspect of the investing. There's a lot of it that goes, hey, family, I want to purchase a new property. Okay, if I want to purchase a new property, what sort of setup can I do to go up at a certain level? So there's that. And then there's the extreme long tail of the other end where it's, I don't have to absolutely worry at all on this. I'm just going to leave it there for a long time. Hell, I'm
investing in planets. So
investing in future stars so they can be mined. So they're all mine. But no, like an example of that is Bitcoin, right? So for me, I've now established it to a 98% degree, let's just say, because 2%, I'm telling you right now, folks, the other day, I was on the hover trigger of selling some Bitcoin to get some Ethereum to buy more NFTs. I was right there. I was like...
Yeah, you were telling me about this.
I didn't do it, folks. I didn't do it. I'm a mere mortal, though. So there's 2% there. But for the most part, that Bitcoin is secured away. I basically don't want to touch it until the government collapses and then we're just living on Bitcoin. So when that happens, that's when I'll start utilizing some of it. But, you've got to know yourself. I think that's a good point in terms of the thesis of investing money. You need to know yourself. And so this comes to the follow-on point before you get to the next topic is, if I was to explain this almost, and how I want to explain to a kid, right? And obviously when they're 2 months old, but maybe 3 months old, I'll be like, come on, where's your budgeting plan? We're starting a quarterly planning from 3 months.
You've got income coming in through all of these chores.
By the way, folks, you're going to hear me joke about this all the time in the Mere Mortals podcast for like the next 10 years now. It is all said in like tongue in cheek, but there's probably some truth in this anyway, so you'll see it.
That'll be a teensy bit of
we'll start like the monthly goals, and it'll be like my baby, like it'll be like my 3-year-old's baby goals. But no, you'll see, like if I was to describe it to a kid, I would want to. That would probably be one of those key principles in investing money. And again, it's really the foundational stuff. It's not about asking like, oh, but what gives you the most return and what's like the less risk and what am I going to make the most money on? It's almost like those are end state outcomes, and that's, if everything goes well, that happens. But foundationally, if you don't know yourself to be able to express why you need this, then you're not going to know if you need something that's a 4% dividend yield, or if it's a 50% capital growth compounding year on year, or if it's a depreciation asset like a real estate property that benefits you from a taxation perspective. All of those things can be beneficial, but if you don't know yourself and what they actually play a part in, then you're just licking walls at that point. Like you need to figure out what you're doing. So
What was that?
licking walls, folks. Licking walls.
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah?
Nice.
Straight from the
Nice.
walls, folks.
All right. So my next topic, my principle, I suppose, is self-custody, actually. So
Oh, this is a good one.
this is very
It is
pertinent.
a very good one.
Very pertinent to crypto, but I think this applies broadly as well.
How do you explain to a kid provenance?
Provenance. I don't even know what that
Provenance?
means.
Someone asked it on Twitter today, and I was like, shit, I don't even know if I've looked at this
Provenance.
provenance, but I'll pull it up in a moment for provenance. But yes,
Okay.
continue.
So I've got a couple of stories here. So my dad has been going to the casino in his later years in life and
Yes.
enjoying it, even though I secretly found out he was going a lot earlier. Secretly,
When did you find this
when I
out?
was a kid, not too long ago actually. He was doing it on the sly for many a year.
Okay.
With his friend, and that's the thing for him. It's a very social thing, and
Yep.
so he's got a friend group there. This friend group has been ravaged recently with some controversies, debates,
Ooh.
scams. You might even say.
Damn.
And a couple of his friends
Watch out, Mr.
lost big amounts of money to a guy who
Mm-hmm.
was, asking
Scammer.
for some money. I want to, I'm going to pay you back. I'm just seeing some financial troubles, blah, 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 blah. That, they can be very good at it. They can play the long game.
Yep.
And they've lost amounts where
Chunky enough.
they're in their they're in their 60s as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to impact their lifestyle.
Okay. Material
Because
impact.
Yeah, big ones.
Yep.
So that's just related to cash. How about, or maybe a financial advisor in that. So in that case, those friends, they were giving away custody of their cash to someone else, and he fucked off with it.
To a trusted entity.
Yes. Yeah. And so this is it might not feel like it that you're.
It's a lot of trust in the system, folks.
Am I losing custody of my cash while I'm doing this? You might not think in that way, but it's probably worth thinking that way. Similar thing to financial advisors. I believe my dad had a financial advisor at one point, and he eventually found out, this guy was making decisions that would hopefully, do well for my dad, but there were some incentives that if he did this thing or, got this particular stock or invested in this particular way, he gets some cutbacks. Okay, well, that is then where it's like his incentives are different from your incentives. And so giving away that custody there, yeah, okay, maybe you're going to have some problems.
Yep.
Which my dad did. When you mentioned superannuation, so that's here in a pension fund, I guess,
Sure.
if you want to call that that here in Australia. There have been times where pension funds have disappeared, where the money is there. Oh, we're having a financial crisis. We can't afford to pay healthcare for you anymore, or do this thing for you anymore, or that stuff that you thought you had. Well, no, not really.
And I'll say it's just specifically to that. I don't know the details, but I know that there is some conversations being had right now about the Colombian super fund and pension funds. They're basically in the because I know my dad is going back around this year to go and collect his, and there are some conversations happening at the moment around, hey, there's someone new that's come in, new president. It's like, maybe we should take some of these pension funds to be paid for something else. So now it's a bit of a scrambling of let's go, got to get this money out.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, pension funds or super funds feel like they are 100% locked and trusted. These are like bonds, government bonds. They can't surely fail.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially, with those young 20s who are asking you about it, it's going to be 40 something years until they can potentially get that money out.
It could potentially be longer.
Yeah.
You got to realize, I think
the age keeps increasing.
Well, exactly.
Right?
I was reading an article today where it was like the how many years you work might be moving from 40 from a few years ago to 60, just because of the length of people's lives now, lifespan.
Yes.
So it's hey, that's a long time, but nothing to change and nothing to happen.
Yep.
Now, but yes, again, from we're not claiming that it's incredibly risky. It's it is quite safe structures, but they're not infallible. Right?
Yeah. And of course, there's degrees on all of these. Crypto, we've talked about this a lot. It's not your keys, not your crypto. That's been the big learning, and this is especially pertinent here because it is so new. There's so little regulations. If you own land here, I mean, it's kind of hard to have custody of land unless you have a lot of shotguns to defend that land and, good friends who will also carry shotguns to defend your land. It. There is that, but then there's also, handshake deals. Oh, this old lady said she was going to pass on this in her will. I can rely on that. Oh, wait, that doesn't actually legally hold up in court. Okay, well, now I don't have that thing that I thought I had. So I suppose it's just getting to the aspect of you're never going to get 100% custody of something unless you have maybe some Bitcoin or some gold and some cash. But everything else is kind of varying levels. And so I think there's probably always a step where you can go upwards on getting more of the custody yourself, more assurances, and downwards on that scale. It's probably best to be going upwards as much as possible.
I like that principle. I'd assign to that principle. I mean, don't hear it because we're talking about self custody that everything's going to be like you're going to be the custodian of everything. There's a lot of things in the world right now that don't work like that, and that's fine. But the more there's borrowing from the crypto world, the more you can verify that is certain that it is yours and certain that it's closer to you in its asset, liquidity, utilization, management state, the better, as opposed to you trusting 17 different intermediary parties for you to be able to get to, what you own. So, from a property perspective, it's like you own it, but a part of, like, say, if you have a loan, it's with a bank, and you have to go through the bank to another intermediary agent who then holds it to another place. So, it's through structures, and that's why it is quite illiquid, because you've got to go through quite a few steps to be able to obtain anything from it realistically. Sure, you go and tangibly go and feel your house, so it is close in that regard, but the value of that house is somewhere else entirely. As in, I can't just all of a sudden bring my house to a shop and be like, hey, take this house, I'd like to buy some clothes. That doesn't happen. You can't do that. Whereas there's assets like your Bitcoins, like any crypto assets, cash, where it is very much verified. Like, you have it right there, you can manage it, you can shift it down that step ladder if you'd like, and you can put it yourself in a hot wallet or in an exchange, and so that's mediated and managed by somebody else, but you have the availability to move it closer to you. So kind of gets yourself to a better spot. So sure. I like that one for sure.
You got ones? I've got plenty here, man.
Okay, well, let's pause. Let's go to the Boostagram Lounge. Before we go there, I'll talk to you about Provenance, because I did see that. Yeah. And someone mentioned on Twitter, they were like, how do you explain Provenance for a 5-year-old? And I was like, where am I hearing this from?
How do you spell it?
Provenance is Provenance. It comes from the art world. Provenance. I had heard it before, but I couldn't define it.
I thought it was a religious type thing. I'm thinking more Providence, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that's what you're thinking. It's a record of ownership of a work of art or an antique used as a guide to authenticity or quality. So they use provenance in the state of NFTs, but also applies to the provenance of just quality and the tracking of things.
Okay.
So, but yeah, all of these words and things that are younger generation coming up, it's going to be something to probably explain at a very young age. Something that we wouldn't have been taught for, we probably didn't learn this stuff until we started learning about Bitcoin and crypto and the like, How much were you looking into immutability, provenance, self-custodians, all that sort of level recently? Whereas a lot of these people are going to be growing up with it for a lot.
Yeah, well, it's also dependent on, once again, life positions, where we're at a different stage in our life with different things happening in the macro sense, where you feel the shifts of time, and interest rates are always going to be lower, and it's like, oh wait, they're going up now, like what the fuck. So yeah, definitely that's another note I actually have out of thing. Interest for those at home, little teaser there. Joey in the chat actually says, my principles of investing do the opposite of what young Joey would invest in. # invest like an adult.
Very nice.
Not hard to go wrong with that. Not hard to go wrong with that.
Now, let's jump in the Boostagram Lounge. Now, folks, this is the part where we shill you value. No, we don't shill you value. But what we're saying is,
I wouldn't put it that way.
We've been basically talking about halfway through the podcast. Now you're going to listen to another half of the podcast. And we're playing back here the Boostagram. So these are messages with a Satoshi, some sort of value attached back to us that we are able to play back to our community, talk about it, have a conversation about it. And you can join in as well. You can go and play around with any of the new podcasting apps out there that operate in the value for value model. Things like Fountain,
Podverse,
Curecaster, lots of different things. Go and play around with it. See if you can send through some Satoshis or fractional Bitcoin on the way to us. And you might be also appearing on the podcast as well. But there was firstly one that we missed from last week, I believe.
So no, it wasn't missed. This is
there's a new one. Gotcha. Okay.
I got lucky in that I saw on Fountain that it came in, and I went, "Oh shit! Why didn't that come into?"
Cool. Well, this is the one from Petar.
Yes,
correct. Okay, cool. So he boosted through 7,777 sats. Woo! On Fountain, and he says, "I've heard it said, true intelligence is the recognition of your own ignorance. Maybe true intelligence is also recognition of other people's bullshit." Good episode. And that's identifying ideologies, common mistakes that lead to tragedy.
Thank you, Peter.
No, truly appreciate it as always, good sir.
I kind of talking about this. Funnily enough, I was listening to a Naval Ravikant with David Deutsch.
Yep.
And then he was talking about AI and how he's like unimpressed with it becoming general AI.
Unimpressed.
Okay. Yeah. He's like, this is an actual thing. And his thing was when they can start saying no and being disobedient. That's when he says that's when impressed. He thinks it's gotten like a step change level. So it's almost true intelligence is also being able to come up with bullshit and be disobedient. How about that, Peter? You like that?
I'll have to think about that. All right. Now to a few of the other ones, we received the usual Dave Jones, the weekly boost for the Mere Mortal Light Nation. 12,112 sats using Cron.
Yeah. I want to call this one out as well. People, I've heard people on other podcasts asking for this.
Oh, really?
Wanting this. Dave's been doing this for like fucking 6 months, man. He is so far ahead of everyone by establishing something like this. It
is amazing.
Yeah, really awesome.
Dave, if you can somehow generalize this, make this a little bit more accessible for other folks, is that possible?
You'd be fucking rich, Dave.
Dude, put it, if he can do it and then put a fork of like whoever uses that, sends like 10 Satoshis off to Dave.
Well, that's what all these things are starting to do. There's all these services which are, stats packages, or people will do, this sort of thing. I'll upload your chapter art and stuff like that if you put me in for a split. There's all these sorts of different ones coming in. There's another one which I'll talk with you about. Maybe worth talking about next week. There's a Musings of like monetization, of being able to have other people create services for you, and it is following the value for value model,
yep.
And there's no upfront cost to us. They get paid when we get paid.
Yeah, they basically just get the value of the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but no, Dave always have appreciated the Satoshis come through in the weekly boost, and the Mere Mortal Nation always approves. Here's another one from McIntosh. Some good thoughts, gents. Now, I'm assuming that's on the Ideology podcast conversation. That was 2,121 sats sent using Fountain.
Yep.
You're seeing lots of people using Fountain. Mm-hmm. And then we've got one from Baz. +1 for public speaking is a useful skill for most people. 2,000 sats sent using Fountain. Now,
I'm going to take the loss on this.
Kyrin's going to take the loss because, folks, we've seen this now in comments. We've seen this come through on the YouTube side. We've seen this on the Boostagram. I talked about it to many people in the real world, to other Mere Mortal Lights.
I will still argue to the death that it's not necessary, but I will also admit my perception of what I thought other people would think about the value on public speaking at is much, much higher than I thought the average person, or at least people who've been speaking to us.
Fair.
Right? So maybe I was not completely with reality in that section. So. And
that concludes the Mere Mortals Boostagram Lounge. I don't think there's any others that came through. There's obviously some still that come through from a streaming perspective.
People are always streaming and sending stuff that in like that, which is very cool. To get highlighted for this show, to get on here, I would just recommend going to fountain.fm if you want to type it in a browser, or look for Fountain on your Google Play Store, or what's the App Store? The Apple Store? I don't know. Yeah. And just giving it a try, you're able to actually get some Lightning Bitcoin within the actual app. A purchase in there is so much easier than a year ago. Holy dang. We have gone leaps and bounds.
Do you remember that? So here's the difference. A year ago, we were considering like, hey, do we have to make a video of this? So anybody could understand how the hell they can send some value to us. where now you're on, it's almost like, hey, just get the app. You'll basically just be getting Satoshis as you're listening to things, and you can send it off. Like, you can participate in the space very easily. And I think it'll just, again, 1 year from now, going to be so much easier.
Oh yeah. More cool stuff on the way. Check out the next week's musings. I'll talk more about these sorts of things. So that's just my recommendation for that section. Let's get back into
it. Money.
Investing.
Okay, you got to give me another principle.
Okay, another principle for me is knowing about black swans and diversifying.
Okay.
So if you didn't live it and you have the opportunity to chat someone who lived through the GFC, 2008, who lived through the 60s or 70s inflation then, or perhaps even the 2017 crypto bubble or crypto bubbles, I think it's worth getting just that, what it's like to have your world shifted either really rapidly, mostly on the bad side in those examples, but it could be on the good side as well. I think that's worthwhile, because I was chatting with my dad once again the other day. I learned a lot from him, and he was telling me about just how, I was asking about his friends. How can they make such dumb decisions? How could they give away that much money? How did they even get that much money to then get scammed out of it? Was my question. Like, how do you do that? And he was saying, well, they had some various ways of doing it. One lady, she kind of married into wealth. They split up.
That's how I'm going to do it.
She, I believe it was the carpet call.
Carpet call man. Ooh,
getting some of that carpet money, boy. Some rugging.
I want to get rugged.
That's why she got rugged. And these you just get like this variations of like, okay, you can see how people can get wrecked by just these risks that they just had no idea about. 2008 GFC. What do I care about CDC things in America? These completely like artificial mortgage bubble that somehow affected the whole world. That it's not reasonable to have that on your radar. Or COVID. Yeah, fuck. We all lived through COVID. We all know what that one is like. Those things happen, and so this is why, hence diversifying is useful. And so, I like to think of this on two levels. There's kind of like the high level, and this is just diversifying in savings, in property, in stocks, in crypto, in non-depreciating goods. Perhaps if you have, I don't know, fucking trading cards or antique cutlery, or you've got, a collection of furniture or things like that, which aren't, as long as they're not cars that depreciate rapidly. I think that sort of diversifying is really good. And then when it comes to kind of inter diversifying, i.e. diversifying within stocks and things like that, that's when it gets a bit more paradoxical, because it's like, how much should you do that? If you're in crypto, should you have, a 1% allocation of your 100% of, let's say you've got a bundle of crypto, should you have 1% in each of the top 100 coins? That's a lot of diversification.
It's a lot of diversification, yeah.
That's and in terms of like just pure numbers of diversification, dang, you must be doing good. If you do that, you're probably going to get wrecked. It's not going to end well for you, because that is a kind of bad level of strategy. You're spreading yourself too thin. So when you think of, I assume diversification is part of what you think about, i.e. you haven't got all your chips in one place. See, I think all eggs in one basket.
I think about it less than probably you do in that regard. The diversification. I think I understand the principle of it. And when I was trying to find at the moment, although I'm struggling to find the actual specific quote around it, but it was Ray Dalio. Although the principle exists.
It's like 5 different things, and they have to be non-correlated.
Yeah,
but if you
it was
get
like
above that, it's
not as
too much. Yeah.
Well, no, it's not even that it's too much. It's just you reach a certain threshold of like the benefit, and I think it was something like 7 or 10 or 13. Can't remember the number.
It wasn't super high.
It's like, if you can have 7 plus investment assets that are non correlated to each other, then by a more statistical predictability perspective, you're going to get an overall better chance for a return. I couldn't find it, but it's one of those numbers out there. So if Kyrin might give it an attempt to try to find that, we can have a look at it.
I won't do that right now, but there's another thing I'm researching.
Okay, so that aspect to me, I go, okay, I understand it. I understand the concept for the diversification. So diversifying is a good thing, especially in overcoming what might be a black swan event that you can't predict. However, that being said, I don't do this personally too well. As in, I've almost just fortuitously fallen with a few varied investments myself. And look, some of this, depending on where you live in the world, are going to be like predetermined by you from the government perspective, aka superannuation. As you step forward, you might have, your personal investments, you might have property, you might then look into shares. There's also crypto. There's also, as you said, all these different aspects. I don't necessarily say, and we're talking to me more lights here. There could be the full gamut of people out here who are listening to us who are just absolutely millionaires who can diversify and it's easy. But I can also imagine people listening to this who are like, hey, I barely have 2 nickels to scratch, Manshul, and I barely got no money left to go. And I go, look, yes, still think about the diversification, but at that point, just go to, again, when I go back to the original point, what's the thing that you need? Go after that, and then look at diversifying. So, look, at the best state, if you can diversify, do so, and it does protect you from black swans. So you're not, if a particular, so like say if right now crypto completely crashed, everything goes to zero. We're not dead. We're sad, but we're not dead, right? We've not lost everything. But I wouldn't say that it's not a natural tendency for me. I don't think there's a natural tendency for anybody. There's a natural tendency to know a particular field and then go really hard into that field, be really hard into stocks or property or crypto or something else. It can be beneficial to be split, and that takes a little bit of effort to go and spread yourself a little bit thinner, because it also, you won't get the heady heights of returns. That's not the path to getting the ultimate maximal return. You won't get it in that sort of strategy, but it'll let you live and flow throughout the ups and downs a little bit more maturely, a little bit with less waviness than you would if you went all in on a particular crazy, experience. Case in point, I'm going to say that there would have only been, in fact, I don't even know if there's any listeners. I don't know if anyone that I've ever talked about or talked to who's ever bought Bitcoin 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013 and held every single one all the way till now. No. Right? There's a lot of up and downs. At some point, you got to exit.
If someone did that, I would be questioning their financial skills, to be honest, because it's getting to that point where it's like there's such big gains and you haven't sold a single piece of this. Like that dedication is kind of almost unhinging in a way.
I was doing something weird. I was looking through like Bitcoin wallets the other day and like just hashes and seeing transactions, and I found a wallet that had something like equivalent to today, 2-point-something million Australian, that hadn't done a transaction basically. So, and I don't know, it was pre-2015 that Bitcoin was there. And I was like, damn, like this is wild. I was like, this person died? Like what is going on? Yeah. But again, it just kind of comes to, almost talking about the long-term play. Maybe perhaps this person, whoever it is, either if they still have the keys for that, to play the real long-term, the 100 years.
Yeah, long-term. Look, it's more just, if you were in that early, your Bitcoin would now be such a large percentage of your portfolio. Kind of portfolio management wise, you'd maybe go, it's, what used to be a 1% little gamble thing is now 99.5% of my net worth.
Yeah. Do you diversify? Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Correct. And you said you haven't really thought of it, but I kind of feel like you've been doing it. That's
what I think. I don't think about it. Like consciously.
I would have said,
but I feel like I'm doing it
more diversified than me in many ways.
There's some aspects of it, but yeah, I think you crush it on that point, because another example is Tim Ferriss talks about this, where he invested, instead of going ahead and doing an MBA, he basically said, I'm going to take that money, instead of doing a Stanford MBA, I'll take that money, I'll invest it into basically angel invested into companies and see what happens. Obviously went really well for himself, made hundreds of millions of dollars. But all of a sudden, it was, his percentages, he was like, oh, well, this investing is going to be this part of my investment portfolio or like balance, and then this other area will be the whatever it may be. And obviously, this all of a sudden, it's 99.9% of your entire net worth. And so it's like, okay, shit. Do you like now restart balancing these things with different things? I don't know. He's talked about it before at a couple of investing podcasts. So, yes, I'd say more diversification, the better. The more you can do, the better.
I'm glad you brought that up because I saw this thing on Twitter the other day. There was a video of, I think it was like the 2007 Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway conference thing that they do. You know, the year-end get-together. What do they call those? I forget. It's like a stock get-together and company...
Conference. So let's say it's
end of year company,
annual conference,
whatever it is. And he got up and he asked a question to Warren Buffett. And his question...
Tim?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And his question was essentially like, I've got a little bit of money. I'm time poor. What are your principles or strategies for someone who doesn't have all the time in the world, who's got multiple things going on? And they're like, well, the S&P 500, do the broad one. If you're not going to beat these analysts who spend all day, every day doing this with all of their ridiculously important machines, getting as close as they can to blah, blah, blah. In some ways, a lot of that is short-term driven, so they can kind of miss some of the long-term things. But by and large, S&P. And I was trying to figure this out just now because I'd seen a stat somewhere which was talking about how over 30 years, Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, his investment portfolio, only beat the S&P 500 by like 0.2%.
Yeah.
Now, that's still a lot of money when you're considering like 30, 40, 50 years, whatever.
Sure, of course.
But it's not like that. It's not as if you're going to be 5xing whatever the S&P is, unless you get very lucky.
Yeah, true.
And I would put it more down to luck.
Luck than anything else. Yeah.
You can be the most skillful analyst ever with the most time ever. And there's a lot of people doing that and they still don't get those, thousand bag or whatever they're called. So, yeah, in this case, I'm definitely sort of thinking like, a way of diversifying is by buying a single product, i.e. an ETF of some sort. That's what I've held for most of my time in investing in stocks. So, like that's been the largest part. And, funnily enough, that's the thing that is not done the very best, but
consistent.
But consistent,
yeah.
Yes, correct.
But again, and that falls back to knowing thyself, right? Do you need something to be, if you've got a big chunk, whether it's ETF, property, something else that perhaps is a dividend yielding asset, as in it's giving you money on a weekly, fortnightly, monthly basis, annual basis, quarterly basis. Do you want that and you're using that for a cash flow perspective? Do you want that to be erratic? Do you want it to be like $2 today, $10,000 tomorrow, $5 the next day, or like per year? No, you don't want that. So then you start, and we're not getting into like really money details here, but it's kind of like, okay, on a year basis, do you prefer something that gives you $5,000, then 20 grand, then 6 grand, then 52 grand, then 1 grand, then $2, then 100 grand? Or do you prefer consistency and in lieu of capital gains or other benefits? So, you will know yourself and go, if you don't need that money, cool, fucking go for your life. And if in total it's $10,000 more over 10 years, well, fuck it, who cares? Because you don't care from a cash flow perspective. But if you need it to be consistent to pay bills or to feed your kids and it just sort of helps out, then you might take the benefit of not gaining $10,000 over 10 years, but getting the benefit that comes with the consistency, aka not losing the asset in those 10-year time and losing the compounding growth that might be in place.
Yeah. So I got two more things. One's related to resources you'd maybe recommend, but this came up just then, which I hadn't written down, was the psychological aspect of investing. I know for me, it's been relatively smooth sailing, in the sense that when I was first investing, I had a very steady job with a good income. And so I made some very poor decisions and I was sitting on some red for a long time and it was kind of okay. It sucks, but I had the kind of psychological fortitude to be like, I don't need to sell now. More than likely it's going to go back up in the future. I just invested at the wrong time and maybe a bit too heavily. Hello, crypto, Kyrin of 1 or 2 years ago. And it's you can suck this red for a while. You're going to be sitting on red. It's going to look like a big number, but let's see what it's like in 2 years' time, because you're still going to be working in 2 years' time. And then sure enough, it all kind of came good. And at one point it was like way up. And then of course it came down again. And might be worth bringing out, just saying, you know, over this kind of, I'd say I've been investing 10 years now, more or less. How much better or worse have I done than, you know, the average or whatnot? I'm probably bang on average, to be honest. When I look at how much I've put in, taken out, and, you know, it's very hard to calculate when you start doing all sorts of, you know, you sell things and then you're looking at like, okay, what could have been if I'd held on to that, or, you know, what does this return compared to this being put in, and blah, 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 blah. It gets complicated. But I would say in general, like, I've kind of, if I'd just chucked it all in an ETF, I'd probably be roughly the same.
About the same.
Yeah. And that's, you know, a good result considering how little effort I've put in into, you know, researching individual things. I have done that, and some of them have done good, but some of them I've just gotten smacked on, wrecked on. And I think just like having that, maybe a good starting point of being like the long term. If you're chasing short term games, I guess it's probably just more an emphasis on my point, which is the short term games are so much harder to.
Well, psychologically, you're talking about psychological, right?
Psychologically, yes.
Like if you're going to get yourself into shorter and shorter games, which you can, there's reasons to do so. Be prepared to bear the consequences psychologically around that, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Both as they say,
experience that, like you were saying before.
And as I say, you know, wins, like looking at it from like a wave, right? The wins versus your losses. Even if you win 4 times, but you lose once, and it's, you know, you lose, not like you've got more wins than losses. That loss, you know, aversion or like pain will feel bad. You know, if you bet $200 and you get $400, right? But then you bet $300 and you lose it all. You know, that losing $300 like hurts way more, and then you can get into the fallacies of doubling down and trying to make it up, almost gambling style.
Yeah, so
or
it's
just
probably
feeling the psychological pain of, you know, one day being up by $1,000 and the next day being down by $3,000, and you know, knowing, even if you know that the process will eventually make sure that you're at a positive, psychologically you're gonna have to deal with those blows repeatedly. Are you in a state where you can handle that stress? You can have the cortisol levels going through your body, or do you not? Right? And again, there's knowing yourself. For me, there was a time and place where I could do it to an extreme, not so anymore. And now moving forward, right, I'm going to be talking about obviously providing for my family. It's going to be potentially looking to buy another property. Okay, cool. Those are not things where I should be absolutely just wetting the bed with my money. It should be right in my diapers. That shit shouldn't be going anywhere. It's got to be kept on tight. It's going to go all in cash. I'm going to go to the local bank and empty out the money. But yeah, it depends. And, you know, where do you want to be psychologically playing with your money? I don't want to be fondling my money, folks. So it's going to stay tight.
Are these like dad analogies now? Like
they're starting to
licking
come out.
walls.
Licking walls. Yeah. I'm making my own analogies, folks. Yeah. You know, one of the things I really like about Chinese folks is that they use a lot of analogies and allegories. And very good. I wish I was more like that. So
yeah, we've got some. You just have to be in the know for the Aussies to really get them.
That's true.
All right, last one. Resources. If you were going to recommend someone a resource to become a better investor, or things that you think would help them, what would you recommend? Do you want me to do mine first?
Look, off the top of my mind, that I would personally recommend. I haven't read it, so it's a weird recommendation, but I would say the Black Swan.
Oh, yeah.
Because everybody that I've heard just talks about it. I need to get to reading it at some point, but I would just recommend.
I think I have.
Black Swan by
Nicholas Nassim
Taleb. He kind of seems like an asshole.
Oh, he's 100%.
Like a real asshole if you ever look into him. But apparently the book's pretty good. So
I've watched some stuff. Yeah,
I've
read
seen some of his Twitter stuff, and I'm like, man, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, I've definitely read Anti-Fragile. That was a good book as well.
Yeah, good books, bit of an asshole. So there you go. That's our recommendation. I would also say Ray Dalio's Principles,
the very first episode of
Principles,
this podcast.
But also if you want to have a consumable thing, his video on the economy, that just as a holistic understanding of economy, and look, that is just brilliant to getting your idea.
I'll link it
investing
in the chapter.
In money. That's really, really good. And I would probably What have you got?
So mine were successful people that are maybe similar to you, because you can see successful, and when I talk about successful, I'm narrowing it down here to the financially successful. They can still have a shit life,
Sure.
but be financially successful, but if that's what you're looking for, and who are similar to you. So, for me, going and looking at a Ben Armstrong, BitBoy Crypto, who is fucking off the walls, bananas, and crazy and stuff like that, it's not going to be great investment advice, even if he is maybe financially successful. I don't know if he is or not. There's a lot of crypto shenanigans. People like George Soros, super successful. He's not like me in terms of strategy, from what I can tell. It's not going to be that helpful. Someone like my dad, who is very much like me.
I thought you were going to be like, you want to be like George Soros. I was like, damn.
No.
We're shifting it up here, folks.
No.
Okay, so, I was just going to say, I'd interrupt there and add, I'd probably go, a resource would be check on your own personal investing ideas or the actual practices you're putting in place. So what do I mean by this?
Number 3, your own brain and common sense.
Yeah, okay. So I would kind of, not so much your own brain and common sense, but I would say, and we both do this, have a tracker of where you actually invest your monny. So if you are
100%.
If you're an individual who does this kind of manually, or you can do it automatically, however much or however little, go and have a look at where you're putting your money in your buckets of investments, allocations to, because, it's one thing to say something, it's two to see it and proof in the pudding, because you might be talking about the fact that, I like to diversify and I like to do this, and all your money's in Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
I DCA all the time. And then you look at
Kyrin,
you don't. And it hasn't been.
So it's like, and I think with mine, there's a lot of things which are, I think, if I can really remember, I think 30 to 40% of my assets are illiquid, as in it would take some sort of effort to gather that sort of worth out. The rest of it is liquid. Okay, I'm happy with that balance. It's fine. But I at least check it on a monthly basis to understand for myself, okay, if my investment allocation is in the correct level. I do not want to see a couple of things, but I don't want to see 80% of liquid, 20% liquid. No, that doesn't play around for me enough at this point. And I also don't want to see an overabundance when we talk about diversification into one aspect in particular. When it was the boom of crypto and NFT, you better believe I think my crypto and NFT was like 70% of my assets. I'm talking like this compared to like properties and stuff. So I was like, damn, this is quite high. And then it came back down. So now I think it's probably sitting at like 32 or 31% or something like that.
I gotta say, man,
the overall.
I'm kind of glad. I've just been down. I almost bought in.
I've just suffered the whole time. Yeah. I never got to enjoy the joy of it being high.
I think I got maybe 1 week of
1 week of joy. Yeah.
Well, this is the other thing with investing. It's very paradoxical sometimes. I've made fantastic decisions that have cost me money. Like I would say, I make that decision, 9 times out of 10, it's going to work well. I get that 1 time out of 10, and then vice versa. Extremely stupid decisions, and the best performing thing I've ever invested in is Hosky. Like, how fucked up is that? I've put in so much more work into other things, and that's the thing that's done the best. But who am I to say? For me, I had one book, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Just recommend that. I found that good. Lyn Alden, actually. I've been kind of...
I like Lyn. If you haven't listened to Lyn at all, super smart. You're going to have to I listen to podcasts now at 1.5 or 1.8. I will pull it back down to 1.2 if it's really hard conversations, or it's like health, or Peter Attia or Andrew Huberman.
Yeah.
I could listen to Lyn at 1.
Yeah.
Because the amount of info that comes out of her mouth, and she speaks quite fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, get ready to just take it all in.
So she's also got a newsletter, which I just joined up to. And I don't read things online. I hate reading things on the computer. I sat through that and read it and was like, I'm glad I did that. So
okay, cool.
That comes out every 6 weeks for that. Already talked about your own brain. And then you mentioned it before, behavioral psychology books. I think that it's like learning about other aspects of yourself, which you don't realize, I'm never going to get caught up in the hype of something. I probably would have said that 3 years ago.
Damn.
Get wrecked, Kyrin, crypto bubble, and you invest way too much too heavily. And it's I think the more you can kind of, just have those experiences. Sometimes you just need to experience some things and be like, that was a dumb decision. Hopefully I won't do that again.
Yeah. Kyrin's talking about investing into $4 Cardano here, folks. Heavily.
Yeah. The biggest portion I put in was right at the very top.
Very good.
Oh, beautiful.
I put a huge chunk into Immutable at $8.90. Pretty sure it's at like 22 cents, some shit like that now.
Nice. Love it.
Very good.
Very good. So,
here's my final one, and here's to tie it all
summary,
up as well.
Yep.
Summary, investing in money. There's one crucial, fantastical item that we haven't talked about. Now, all of these principles do hold true, absolutely. But the final one and the key one is what humans and mere mortals barely understand, and again, ties it all up. We're talking about time.
Is it risk?
Right?
I was going to say
it is a part risk. Look, it is part risk, but I'm not going to dial into the risk because it is the time domain. Mm-hmm. And the longer that time domain goes, the better, undoubtedly, for a lot of things. Why? As much as you want it or don't want it, a lot of growth happens in life. And the more time you give it, the more compounding it is. We talked about the Warren Buffetts and a few others. If you go and look at the statistics or whatever it may be, was it like 95% of the wealth that Warren Buffett made? It's literally in the last few years. It's not from all of his lifetime. It's really right at the end. So, you could be having 60 years of pretty low income or whatever, and all of a sudden, boop, compounds and boop, it just explodes. You've got a lot of money. So from a investing monetary perspective, time is your king, right? And so it falls back to a lot of the things that we're saying. The more time you can be in the market, the better the market's going to be for you, just about undoubtedly, as long as you're picking something that is also equivalently in the long-term play. So for me, when I think about players like property or Bitcoin or companies that are very long-term that I go, hey, they're innovating, they're playing in a space that's going to be here for very, very many years. Awesome. The more time, the better. And then you can kind of ride out or even forget some of the ups and downs because ultimately your strategy point is all somewhere out there. The outcome is 100 years into the future and you go, cool, time is my king here. Put all the other principles in place so you can essentially guide your way out towards that end.
Yep, nice. Mine, I've got 4. First one was, research the risk. Risk is very hard because there's probabilities. Humans suck with probabilities, in particular me. I've always really struggled with them. Kind of put in what you can afford to lose on one-off bets, I think. Other than that, diversify and aim long-term. It's relatively simple. At least this is what I would do. All of this is with the caveat. I think this is general principle advice. If you told me your story, I'd maybe be like, fucking YOLO into the stupidest shitcoin you can. Who knows? I think it's also useful. You can and will lose everywhere at various times. So there's going to be times when the whole market is just going down in a particular sector and you have no hope of beating it. If you were in tech in like the last year, you got wrecked, mate. There's none that are going to have done a 10,000x while most of them were doing, 90% down sort of thing. I don't even think non-investing is a kind of solution because inflation happens. And so you got to have assets somewhere doing something. Otherwise, you got to be investing somehow. I don't think you can escape the game, to be honest.
No.
Unless you're like living for the moment, maybe. Sure. Which is also how some people choose to live, and it works out well for them, much like my friend Brennan. Unless you can't do math, I think you should maintain control yourself as much as possible.
Yeah.
If you're struggling with math, maybe having
there's a conversation to have,
or something like that. But I think most people have an ability for some level of more control than they perhaps do. And then the last one was have some sort of check-in process for your own circumstances, an actual portfolio, i.e. things change, both in you, yourself, and the world. And what does not get measured does not get managed.
Ooh,
I brought it out.
Pulls out the quote. I want
to
end with this one for the mere mortalites, a little bit of fun. If you had to Hail Mary, throw risk literally to the wind, like fuck it, most amount of money you can try to make in a week, what do you do? 30 seconds.
1 week.
Like in 1 week, as much money as possible. Literally, like throw risk. It could be the riskiest thing possible.
Casino.
So,
I think I would just go to the casino and just get as much as I can and just straight up. I know the odds there are somewhat. Like I roughly know what the odds are there.
Yep.
I know they're not in my favor, but I don't have any other, things I've been watching recently
that could be a possibility
that have the possibility of getting to, a 10x.
Gotcha.
Which at least the casino, you can get to fucking 1,000x in the casino.
Right.
Just got to be lucky as shit.
For me, I would throw morals, ethics, values straight out the window for a 1 week. What I would do is what's the hottest thing right now? AI, metaverse, or whatever. I'd throw all the money I have into getting a team and be like, build me a coin about AI, put unreasonable expectations on it. Like everyone who holds this coin I'd throw up a website with just like incredible things. Like if you own one of these tokens, you get free flights for a year. You go into the draw for $1 million, sell the shit out of it, rug the whole project, and just make out with whatever the fuck the money's left over and just disappear. So that would be my idea. Which I genuinely, I saw a post on Twitter just the other day, and it was like, in the last year or two in tokens and projects and like that have rug, like there's been hundreds of millions of dollars that have just been taken away out of the ecosystem. So I want some of this. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
AI is definitely the hot thing at the moment. So
I just saw a post today on Instagram which was saying that again, it's stupid. I'm not going into the details, but it was like for the last week. AI crypto tokens are up by 400%, with the biggest one being 370%. Is this the next big thing? And I was like, no details, no nothing. Stay away from that fact. That is just danger.
That's
danger.
That's danger. Financial advice.
Get smart, folks. Anyways, this has been the Mere Mortals podcast talking about investing your money in Musings. Once again, we talked about the Boostagram and the Value for Value model. I won't belabor the point.
Yeah.
Go too detailed into the point.
Yeah.
Go on to Fountain.fm. Go and check out newpodcastingapps.com. Send us through. Yes.
Some mad lad has bought the domain for podcastapps.com and volunteered to give it to Adam and Dave. And they're like, no,
really?
You just keep it. But if you want to direct it to us, for sure. So you can go to podcastapps.com. Balls.
Wow. Podcastingapps.com. There you go.
No. Podcast apps.
Sorry, podcastapps.com.
Yeah.
There you go. So you got a couple of different ways to get there now. Yeah. Go try out a few of those ones. Look, we recommend Fountain. Send through some sats, either by way of streaming or by a Boostagram. Share the podcast as well if you find that it's been useful, if you found it interesting, if you want to go and hate on us. Now we're starting to see, this is the thing. Want to start to get a few more viewers, which we're starting to see. We're starting to hit some peak viewers across the systems. Out come the haters. All of them are like, Kyrin's an ugly piece of shit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Our Kyrin's a useless person for humanity. He's the top watched video people. So
my favorite so far has been the guy who saw a review that I gave a bad review of a book or something and was like, I want to drag you out of a window and shake you for your like bad reviews. I took that kind of badly. I don't like violence, so that one I was pretty rude to him. Most of them I respond in like a jokingly way, but that one I was like, why the fuck are you even watching, man? Like,
why'd you watch it to the end? Yeah. But if you watch this one to the end, you hate Kyrin, well done. Share it to more people taking hate on Kyrin, but probably share it with people who are going to enjoy the Mere Mortals podcast. That's probably going to be the best thing.
I hope so.
Mere Mortalites, I hope you have enjoyed. That is all from Brisbane. We are live 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Wednesday. If you want to check us live, if you don't, you'll be listening to this at a later time. But for now, one out.
Kyrin out.
Money. Good.
What up, everyone? Thank you, Joey and Patricia. If you were still in the chat, I'm going to be on the Discord. And we'll catch you all next week.
Ciao.
Peace.